All right, everyone. Welcome to the Real Estate Game Changer Show. I'm your host, Mike McKay, and I've got Louisa as my co-host today. So everyone, welcome to the show. So last time we were on the show, we talked about the new hiring system we had built to hire salespeople, how we had kind of gamified everything and how we were opened up our sales hiring to not just nationwide, but all around the world. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. I think we didn't make it to the end of that process, but it's been going pretty well for us, I would say. We've definitely had some learnings along the way, but I think it falls under the idea of, got something in my tooth. I have to edit that out.
That's live.
That's fine. We'll edit it out later. I know it can be edited later. So I think that falls in line with the topic we were talking about a lot, which is we've started to try to really build the business in ways that we like to build the business. We've met a lot of great people over the years who've shared a lot of great things that have worked for them. And we've tried a lot of those things and had, some success with it and some not. And what we realize is when we started to take those ideas that worked for other people and use those concepts, but build them in a way that aligns with us, is when things kind of started to feel more fun for us in the business, and things came a little easier. So obviously it still has its challenges, but I think last time we left off talking about how, I think the last thing we talked about is how we give them a test when we're hiring the salespeople. Yeah. So let's just pick up there. Maybe talk a little bit about how we do that and why we do that, and then we can continue and tell people the rest of that process and what our learnings have been so far.
This is a final test.
We've
signed.
The commission test.
Okay. So just a super fast recap. We're doing 2 live interviews, and these interviews are both gamified and they're both group interviews. And so if you watch our last episode, you're going to understand how they're composed of like different levels and what we're looking for. Now, at this point, once we have someone who is signed, we have them take a test. And before that test, we give them a PDF that has all the information about, well, like a very, I want to say like easy, for sure, how would you call it? Like manual?
Study guide.
Yeah, study guide. And then I do tell them they are going to have this test, they're going to be scored, and if they score anywhere from 95 to 100, they're getting the highest commission, and then if they score below 90, I won't hire them. And so it's been very interesting to see how people show up to that test, and how the specific number, like result they get, actually, in my opinion, I don't know if you would agree, but in my opinion, it actually is like almost a fair comparison to how they develop and how they perform in like the first few days of working with us. So we do that. We do it to set them up for success from day one, so they already know. I think you should talk about that. You designed that.
Well, yeah. I mean, the whole reason behind this is that we tell people, like, we don't have the time to teach you the basics of real estate on day one. Like, I don't have time to teach you the areas that we buy in, what our qualification criteria is for a lead, what ARV is, what a mortgage payoff is. Like, this test isn't hard. It's just like the very basics you would need to know. And we decided that instead of teaching people that in the first few days, they should show up on day one already knowing that info, because that makes my job a lot easier if we're all speaking the same language on day one. So that's why we created it. And of course, the way it's structured, I mean, you're going to study if it's going to affect your commission, right? One change we did make there, though, is we used to have it 90% or higher. You would get the highest commission, and then we would still hire you 80% or higher. And then we realized that the test is so stupid easy that if you can't get a 90, then, well, you really shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we do after they've signed their onboarding paperwork. Is it after they've signed the onboarding? Yeah. But they know that obviously if they score less than that, that offer is going to be rescinded. And so from there, the next part that we do of onboarding is I recorded a bunch of videos of me taking calls. And we tell them that they're going to be on the phones day one. So, it's important that they actually know how to sound like on the calls. Now, they've already studied our script for the second interview, but now they get a little bit more in depth where they get a link to Trainual, which is our training portal. And it's about 3 hours long, and it's me making calls and me explaining why I do things after. And it's all broken down into structure, like different parts of our script. And they need to complete that, and they need to set up all their accounts before day one. I tell them that we don't have time to set up your CRM accounts, your email accounts. Like most companies waste time setting up your email and your CRM. They spend the first 2 days doing that. And my theory is like day one, we're going to learn how to sell, and we're going to sell. So actually, the guy we hired today, I didn't tell you this yet. Well, he started today.
Yeah.
Actually got an appointment already.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And Kyla was shadowing him, so it is a good appointment.
Wow.
So we have them do that onboarding, and then they start on day one, and I've built out a 30-day onboarding process with them within Trainual. The first 2 weeks have the most important stuff, and then they learn more throughout. And I broke it down like that because I realized previously I was throwing way too much information at people at once. And this way they have a structured way to learn. So they have to complete one of the training modules, which is the morning module before the morning huddle, the morning sales huddle we have every morning, which is where we do our sales training. And the purpose of that is they're going to show up to that sales training at least knowing the same basics that all the sales reps who are already here know. So they're not going to show up saying, oh, what is this concept?
Yeah.
They're going to show up at least having watched 20 minutes of videos and examples before the huddle, so that then we go into role playing and practicing that concept, and they're able to keep up with the rest of the reps that are already here. And, they also have we have a daily, we call it our stoplight report. So they've got certain metrics they got to hit in their first 2 weeks, and those metrics get higher as the weeks go on because there's less and less onboarding as the weeks go on until they have to hit their numbers.
Yeah, I think that's something that we changed recently.
Yeah, that's something we changed. I used to have the numbers, just you had to hit all the numbers on day one, and I realized I wasn't giving people an opportunity to learn because they were so focused on hitting numbers. Numbers being like how many calls they're making.
Yeah, I think that was an important change.
Yeah, that was an important change.
Yeah.
And then what we started doing too, I think this is an important thing to mention, is that you don't get any new leads in the system until you've booked 6 valid appointments. So valid appointments meaning our sales operations assistant listens to the call afterwards, confirms that they actually meet the qualification criteria, and then that counts as a valid appointment. And the reason I did this is I want people to know that there's always opportunity existing in the CRM. We've probably got 7,000 leads from the last 3 years of doing this. And if there's a day where new leads are slow coming in, people have no reason to come to me and say there's no opportunity. I mean, I went in the CRM last week, pulled out a lead I hadn't spoke to in 6 months, and got a contract signed. So they need to know from day one that there's opportunity within the CRM. So they have to do those 6 qualified appointments before they're eligible to receive outbound leads, which is cold calling in our book. And then after that, after hitting some more metrics and passing my role play, then they can start to receive inbound leads. So we took this tiered approach, which I think is good because, first of all, we're not putting them on the $600 leads to start,
right.
$600 direct mail leads to start, but also it shows them how to work the different types of leads, how to pull leads out of the system. And if you can deal with someone who's a cold calling lead, you can certainly deal with a nice person who calls in from direct mail.
Right.
So I think that's really that's the high level of our onboarding for now. But I think we've learned a couple things along the way with doing this hiring process. You want to share some of the things we learned?
Yeah. Um, as we've been repeating these over and over with different people, I think that our skills to be able to read the room over Zoom have become a lot more um, skillful. It's just like it's very interesting to see how people jump in, and the environment that we've created just creates so much pressure on them. And you it's very easy for us right now to make up our minds on people when they cannot adapt to the environment. Because in sales, at least I think, they're going to have to adapt and adapt quick and think on their feet. Then the other thing is huge for us is how well they take feedback and how fast they implement that feedback. So, some people make it to the third level. In the last episode, I told everyone that's our cutoff level. We've actually changed that. And so sometimes we will cut people off in like level 1 or 2. But level 3 is really more role playing, receiving that feedback, applying it, going over it again. And so what we've realized is a lot of people will make it there, and then we have to just end it because they're unable to apply the feedback. Yeah. So they receive it, or they don't. They have a lot of resistance, and they just give you pushback, which is fine, but there's no improving at any point. And so before, I feel like I was allowing more of those people in. And then I guess then I realized I was wasting my time on the second round interview. I think once they've completed the first one, what I've started doing also different is like whatever I've given them as feedback during the first round interview, I tell them, okay, so here's what I'm going to send you. I'm going to send you a link to Mike's recordings, a link to, our script, a link to call recordings so you can learn how to speak. You're going to learn about the questions and the pacing. Most of them will always require feedback about the pacing. And so I tell them, and so if you noticed, during our call or our interview, the most feedback I gave you was about your pacing. Let's take our last hire for an example. So I told him, for me, the most important thing that I want to see in your second round interview is I'm evaluating you on how much you learn from what I'm giving you as resources, but I'm also evaluating you on how much you can improve based on this specific feedback. And so in this specific example, I was like, I am going to be evaluating your pacing and how deep you can go with me because we're going to be role playing. And so he said, okay, I will improve it. And then we jump on the second round interview, and the pace was like perfect. It's like impressive. And we started role playing, and the questions were like very personal, but he kept himself very skeptical and very curious. Where like I didn't feel offended at any point, like role playing, obviously. And so taking that to other people that we've interviewed, if by the second interview we start level 1 and there's no improvement, I'm cutting them off. Yeah. Because it's just not what we're looking for. And I think that's something that I wasn't doing before. I was giving them a little bit more of room, right? And like giving them more time to like, okay, giving them more feedback and seeing how they would take it. But I think that the newer approach we're taking, which is really they have to improve, because at the least they're going to have 2 days to improve, to like learn and improve. This is Tuesday, and the next interview will be Thursday. So if they really don't improve in 2 days, well, I just think that's very slow. Yeah. So
not going to work.
Not going to work. Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest things.
Hmm. I think the other thing that we learned is I hired someone a few weeks ago, and I was shadow. I mean, I let him go within like 6 hours of starting. That was a
Hmm.
big lesson learned.
Oh yeah.
And the lesson learned there is I realized that they weren't good with technology,
Hmm.
and they were struggling. Even though we have training videos on how to navigate the CRM and all that, they were struggling on how to navigate the CRM. And the more and more I see more salespeople come through here, the more and more I realize that like if you need to have the ability, like technology needs to come easily to you.
Hmm.
You need to like be able to figure out the CRM and you need to keep it up to date. Like I said, we've got 7,000 leads in the
Hmm.
system. If you do not properly manage those leads, and especially if you're in, I mean, these are inside sales rep roles,
Hmm.
right? So if you're not properly managing your leads, managing your pipeline, updating the fields in the CRM, your leads are going to get lost
Yeah.
in that list of 7,000. You won't call the right people at the right time. And I think that's become more and more clear to me
Yeah.
over the last few weeks. And I was just shadowing the guy on his first day, and I saw him struggling, and I was like, "This just not going to work. Like, he's not going to be able to learn the technology."
Yeah.
And it's not just managing the CRM right, but like the ability to like be efficient on the system,
Hmm.
to be able to like call, quickly move from contact to contact, to be able to use the power dialers we have built in, all that, like to be able to use the system to its full ability, to be
Yeah.
able to pull 2 or 3 appointments out a day, like you need to be able to use technology well.
Yeah.
If you're just good at sales and you can't use technology, like you will fail at this job.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so I think that was like a big learning for me.
Yeah. I think something that we've changed on the interview side of things is like, um, once we once we've decided that we want to hire this person based on what I said before, is I'm having the offer call right there and there with them,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just sending them the emails, like sending them the emails. This is what you need to send me. Like this is like sign here, whatever, and I'm making sure like they're very responsive. I'm like share your screen, and so I can see how they're going through things,
Mm.
and if they're quick,
Yeah.
it just you don't really need that much to understand if someone can or cannot manage
Yeah.
technology easy.
I think that's an interesting point to bring up. So it's like you're sending them the offer, but it's still a test.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't mean you're getting the job. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting point,
Yeah.
right? And I really don't view someone that they have the job even on the first day yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I send an email to people that says the first day, and I tell them on the email that we kick off right at 8:15 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
and Zoom issues aren't an excuse for being late, and you're required to be on time. I have people
Yeah.
show up at 8:16 on the first day, and I just say, well, you don't work here anymore.
Right.
Because I think someone told me this. I'll leave off whose name it is, but they were saying they had hired some salespeople and they noticed some issues in the first few weeks. They let them go, and they said it never gets better.
Mm.
Like if you got issues with someone
Mm-hmm.
in the first few weeks, if they're showing up late or they're just not going to work out, like it's not going to get better a
Yeah.
few months in. So, I mean, people show up a minute late to the interview. We don't let them in the Zoom
Yeah.
room. If they show up a minute late on their first day, they don't start.
Right.
And I also tell people, this is a newer thing I implemented, when I have that first day kickoff with them, we go through their RREK document, which is the roles, responsibility, expectations, and key numbers. And I tell them, I say, I run my sales team like I run a professional sports team, which means if you show up late on a single day in your first 30 days, if you miss one of your metrics one time, if you don't do anything you're supposed to do, I'm just going to cut you. And people understand, right? I mean, it makes sense. Like, it's really simple. We're not asking them to do anything crazy. You make 125 calls a day, you show up on time, like you make progress. Like obviously you got to bring in the appointments and deals,
Right.
but it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
And I tell them too, like I say, I call myself your sales coach, and the reason I don't call myself your manager is that I will not manage you. I will not tell you to make calls. I will help you if you have a problem and you bring it to me. But if I have to tell you to make calls, you're not going to work here anymore. Because that's just a job. The job is making calls. Like, if you don't like to make calls, you should get another job.
Yeah.
Because this is not the job for you.
Yeah. I think it just came to me where, like, last time we recorded this, we had not added your recorded videos to that YouTube playlist that we're now sending for the second round interview.
Yeah, so that's something we changed. So for the second round interview where they have to role play the script with us, previously we sent them the script and some call recordings. Now we send them the script, call recordings, and some of the videos of me making calls, because I think people learn in different ways, right? And the videos also have transcriptions below. So I guess that's a good point to add in general. Like, we built out all of our training videos to appeal to people with different learning styles. So all of our videos have transcriptions at the bottom. So some people learn by reading, right? Other people learn by listening, and other people learn by seeing, right? Some people learn by doing. That's hard to record a video of them.
I feel like also by the end of the first round interview, I sell them a lot, because I used to not do this. I used to tell them, okay, like, we'll see you in the next round interview. Just expect an email from me with the next steps, right? And then once we implemented this video playlist and everything, I go and I tell them, this is a script. You're going to get a link to these videos. And I tell them, if I'm giving them feedback on their pacing and whatever, I'm like, Mike does a great job with his pacing. If I were you, I would have really watched those videos. And I'm like, and really look at, like, the way he uses his body to, like, for tonality, like the way he asks questions, like the way that they're phrased. And so when people come and they've actually seen them, I can, like, catch it, because they're using that tonality. They're, like, asking those questions, and, like, a question that I'm like, okay, they got it from the video. It's like, how do you mean? Or like, what exactly has you considering this one thing? And I'm like, this is such a Mike question. So I'm like, okay, they definitely went through it, and like, and it makes it so much easier. Like, the role plays, they actually get it, and they can think on their feet so much faster.
Yeah. Well, the best part about having that interview and all this prep is that on day one, when they get on the phones, and they can get an appointment on their first day.
Yeah.
Or get some traction on their first day.
Yeah.
So, what other stuff do we want to talk about today? Oh, well, the hiring game has worked well for this part of sales. So now we are hiring people for our cold calling team. So you want to talk about how we've adapted the hiring game? I think we might even do this for every role.
Yeah, it's been just so much fun. So we were, considering opening up this role for cold callers, and I was like, how can we get the most amount of applicants through our pipeline in a way that is fun, right? And so our cold calling manager, Alejandra, was like, oh, well, that she helped me a couple times. And so she was like, well, why don't we do the game? And I was like, well, we can't do the same game, because, like, that's lame. But
well, it's
no,
a little too advanced if you're looking for a cold caller.
It's not the same. But I was like, so she ended up doing 2 separate interviews, and I was like, I don't think so. I think we can do one, like, really smash it in together, like, in a very great way. And so she really went into, we have ChatGPT linked to our drive. And so she just went in and was talking to it with, like, based on the other game and, like, all the things that we have in the sales game. And she just moved it to cold calling. And so now the game is the cold lands. And everything is like a frozen land. And there's I think a total of 6 levels. Each level is, like, very particularly designed for whatever she's looking for. And it's all for an hour, and she can run it with 10 people.
Yeah.
And so it makes it super easy, very fun and very effortless for us. I also think it attracts the right people, just
For
like
sales
100%.
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you run the game, there'd be some people who come in
Mhm.
and they're like annoyed that it's like a
Yeah.
group interview with a game,
Yeah.
and those people never make it. It's
Yeah.
always the people who are like, "Oh, this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
This is going to be." They're competitive, right? They're the type
Yeah.
of person you're looking for a sales
Totally.
role.
And I would say not even only for a sales role. Just like
Hmm.
culturally, I think that the people that adapt and are like they're like, "Oh, okay, this is something new. Okay, let's go for it."
Yeah.
Those are the type of people that we're looking for personally.
Yeah.
To be like around us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Let's see. So other things that have changed is I've jumped back into the closing role in sales, and that's been interesting. I've been back in it for about 10 days. I think I put 3 deals on the board so far, and I'm doing something a lot different than I did before when I was doing sales. So previously, when I was doing sales, didn't have it set up in a way that worked well for me. Like, I'm great on the phone. I'm awesome at closing. I can set appointments. I can do the entire sales process, but for me, being on the phone, hitting all the new leads, constantly having to be available for the flow of new leads coming in is something that really drains me.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I have it structured now is I've got the inside sales agent setting me appointments, whether that's phone appointments or um, in-person appointments, and I'm just going out and closing them. And some things that I've done along the way is like I also want to make sure that I don't like going on appointments that are wasting my time. I'm sure no salesperson likes that. So we've got obviously our sales operations assistant listening to the calls, make sure they're valid appointments. But what I've also been doing after each appointment, which I think is helpful, is I record a short Loom video on my phone, just of me talking after the appointment, and I debrief the appointment for the salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
So this is also going to help me. I'm saving these debriefs for when I move some people up to closing, right? Because I'll have like 50 debriefs, and they can watch one a day as they get onboarded. But it also gives a lot of real-time feedback to my inside sales agents, so it's really easy for them to kind of, first of all, they want to know how the appointment went, but second of all, I can kind of talk about different tactics I use, talk about how the appointment went. Maybe I think the appointment should not have been set. Right. So that's been really helpful in ensuring that I've had the highest quality appointments. I think last week my close rate was 50% on appointments, which is the best it's ever been.
Yeah.
I think previously my high was like 33. And obviously that's just 1 week, so I'm not saying that that's, going to be what it is the whole time, although it would be nice. So.
I do think that two things there are, first, that debriefing, right? It took maybe like a week to like actually impact the appointment setters.
Sure, yeah, they had to see
To
some.
like fully impact them.
Yeah.
But I feel like that clicked a lot.
Yeah.
For the appointment setters, where like they understand a lot more what is like a really worthy appointment and what is like a high close rate appointment. Like what their gut is actually like, okay, this is right. We're on the right track. That's one. And two, I think we've mentioned it, but not really. Where like what we've decided is to really record you doing all these things.
Yeah.
So like record you debriefing, even record yourself when Mike does make calls to set appointments or offer calls. He is recording himself, but he's also recording what he's doing in the CRM.
And I'm recording myself on video, which I think is important to note because people can see like my body language, because if you're selling even on the phone, your body language impacts the way so much that a message gets delivered. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's very important because it's building such an incredible database for people that we're onboarding, or even people. I think one of the reasons we've done this is to allow people to have a career path
Mm-hmm.
where, like, if they want to grow into closers, Mike doesn't have to create this whole new process, right? Or, like, not new process, but record new looms and new, to teach them how to do this. But just by you sharing how you do it,
Mm-hmm.
you're also teaching them.
Yeah.
Because you're not only, and correct me if I'm wrong, but after each call, you're debriefing the calls.
On the offer calls.
On the
offer calls on the phone.
Yeah.
On the video.
And yeah, and these are being recorded.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty impressive. Also because you and I have talked about this in the past where we could possibly feed this into an AI and actually build a bot that can help them answer questions.
Yeah. And I think, like, for example, one thing I did the other day is, I still got some people in my pipeline who are hot leads that I follow up with, even though I'm mostly having appointments set for me. I've got some old prospect relationships. And what I did the other day is I was cleaning out my own pipeline, making sure that I'm only have people in my pipeline who are, like, worthy of my energy, which isn't the majority of prospects. So I was going through my pipeline and I was like, wait, I should just record myself as I'm doing this. So I was doing it. I don't know. I was calling, I was, just eliminating people, like even just seeing past things. Some got assigned to me from other people. I'm like, nope, I'm not going to waste my time with this person. And I recorded like this 45-minute video, and then I sent it over to our team and I said, I want you guys to condense this video on how to manage your pipeline into 10 minutes or less. And I want to be able to send it to sales reps and them to be able to learn how to manage the pipeline. Because, like, it's pretty brutal to watch like a 45-minute video of me managing the pipeline. Because, like, a lot of the time you're just listening to the phone ringing, or like, I'm just like sitting there going through clicking the next contact. So they condense that 45 minutes into 10 minutes of like actionable stuff that they can do. And actually I was meeting one-on-one with one of my sales reps earlier, and I said, I looked at your pipeline. I think you need to clean it up. I was actually going to go through this with you, but the video just got edited. So instead of us doing it together, here's a video on how you manage your pipeline, and me doing it the other day, condensed into 10 minutes. Watch the video, go through your pipeline, and let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah.
And I think that's really been helping too.
Yeah.
Another thing this has allowed us to do is our sales operations assistant listens to calls and she gives them feedback on the calls. And now she has this whole library of stuff.
Yeah.
So now what she started doing last week is she'll give them feedback on a call and say, oh, and here's a video that's 2 minutes long that will show you exactly how to do it and why. So now we have this database that makes it really easy to give people feedback.
Yeah.
Without me always having to be the one doing it.
Yeah, and like it's important to mention all those videos are very short.
Yeah, they're all short. Yeah, I don't think there's any that are longer than 10 minutes.
And they all have subtitles, titles. They're very specifically themed. I think those are really great. Yeah.
I would say the other thing I've noticed that jumping back into closing is, a lot of people are talking right now about the market this, the market that, like it's hard to get a deal. I think it's bullshit. Frankly, just from like the last 10 days I was out there, I think there's a lot of people saying that. And it's just, if you set appointments with the right sellers, and this is the key part that I really took away from the last week, is if you know how to structure a deal. I think knowing how to structure a deal, to solve someone's problem, right? Like you're not gonna, like the market is down, right? People's homes are worth less than they were a year ago. And you need to get it even cheaper so that you can make a profit on it. Right. You are not getting a deal unless you solve someone's problem right now. So don't waste your time on people who don't have problems. Everyone's got problems, but real problems that you can solve that they can solve by selling the home, and you're in a position to solve, right? The second thing is, when I say knowing how to structure a deal, it's like you have to be able to put together things that aren't just your traditional cash purchase. The 3 contracts I got in the last week were all novations. And they weren't novations because I just want use that as an excuse to pay more on the price. They're novations because the people have payoffs that are too high to work as a flip. Like, you actually cannot, 2 of the 3 of them, Actually, no. Even two of the three of them were significantly more
Mm-hmm.
than I would have been able to pay if I was going to buy the property, renovate it, and resell it. But the homes were in decent condition. And the third one was just the payoff was just so close. If I bought it cash, they weren't willing to walk away with $2,000.
Right.
And so I think knowing how to solve people's problems and using a deal structure that solves their problem and kind of getting them to discover that that's the way that they're going to have to sell their home if they want this to work. If they
Mm-hmm.
don't want to do the repairs, but they're not willing to come to closing with money
Yeah.
because their payoff's $40,000 less,
Mm-hmm.
then they're going to need to do some kind of alternative deal structure.
Yeah.
And I think the way that I don't know how everyone in the business does it. I'll just talk about the way that we do novations, but the way we do novations is incredibly transparent, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
We actually, we're so upfront about exactly what's going to happen
Mm-hmm.
to the point where I actually built a process sheet out that the sellers have to initial like 6 different things about what's going to happen in the process. And I'll actually share those with people because I think it's helpful. A lot of people teach how to do novations and they say like, oh, like, you got to tell them this and that. And I'm like, it's really just easiest if you're just honest with the person.
Right.
And tell them like, you want to sell as is, but you owe more
Right.
than a cash buyer is going to pay. I have this hybrid option that would take longer
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to find a buyer for you. It's not going to be me,
Mm-hmm.
but I'll do the repairs for you.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, yeah, that sounds like what I'm looking for, if it's
Mhm.
what they're looking for, right? You can just be upfront with them.
Yeah.
So on that sheet, and I don't have it in front of me, but a couple of things that we have them initial, just so there's no confusion at all about the process,
Mm-hmm.
is we tell them that they're going to, yes, I actually say this on the sheet, and I walk them through it. We tell them they're going to see the property on the market listed for a higher price than we have it in contract for, because we're going to pay for the repairs, we're going to pay for the realtor fees, and we are going to make a profit. And yes, it does say in there we're going to make a profit. People, when you say that, people are like, how could you tell that to someone? People are like, no, of course. I mean, you guys are a business. I get it. So that's one thing. We also only do novations if they're going to let us put a lockbox on the house. I'm not going to work around their schedule, only doing 2 showings a week. I'll set up, something to send a text message notification to them.
Yeah.
So people aren't randomly showing up at their door. But we'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
It writes in there that they have to initial this too, that they're going to have to fill out the seller's disclosures, that then once we find a buyer, they're going to have to sign a new purchase agreement. I don't sign the new purchase agreement for them. I think that's too much risk on us. They've got to sign that directly with the buyer with our novation agreement on top, which specifies everything that we talked about and, that the price that they're going to receive and that we receive the difference. What else do I have on there? I think I have a couple other. There's 6 things that's on there.
I don't remember.
Obviously, we have on there if there's any times they really don't want to have us come by the property, they can write those times that they really don't want a buyer to come by. Sometimes people don't want people to come Sunday morning. But I'm really upfront with them. I tell them the more times you put on here, the less likely I'm going to be able to get this done in a reasonable amount of time for you.
Yeah.
We put that if it's obviously they have to sign that we have the ability to do repairs to the property while they're still there if they're required. And if it's vacant property, sometimes we will stage it, so we get their permission to stage it as well. And there's one or two other there's one or two other important things. But if anyone wants a copy of that document, just let me know. I've shared it with a few people in town. I'm happy to share it with you. But I think the key to doing a successful novation is to be 100% transparent with the seller. I think that's the key to like any real estate transaction or any transaction in general. But we don't sellers. We don't have issues with the novations because I know some people are like, oh, the seller's not going to give us access. Well, did you tell them you were going to bring a bunch of buyers by?
Yeah.
Our sellers know that the more buyers we bring by, the faster we're going to be able to get this done for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's really a key. And in this market, I think you have to have more than one way to structure a deal besides traditional cash. Otherwise, none of those 3 contracts I got last week would have happened. But you still have to keep in mind, you can't shove like a square peg in a round hole, right? Like it still has to be a deal structure that solves the problem for that
I
person.
think you've said this in the past, and I really think it's important. We're like, innovation should be part of your toolbox. It's not like a go-to thing.
Yeah.
It's not the first thing you want to try.
Yeah, and it's not an excuse just to pay more.
Right.
Right. Like, I mean, I also have had appointments in the past week where I didn't pitch innovation. And it's because they said they needed it done in 30 days for 3 weeks. Can't do innovation there.
Right.
It's not going to work.
Yeah.
I always try to get 90 days and then pleasantly surprise them when I can get it done in 60. So, yeah, you can't just go out there pitching innovation for everything. It's a strategy that works to solve someone's problem. So if it solves their problem, it's a good option. If it doesn't, then it's not a strategy that I would do.
I think it's just a tool to structure a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just one of the ways to structure a deal. Yeah. You got anything else you want to talk about? Chance said that's a great idea. I don't know what he's referring to, but hopefully he's referring to being transparent. People.
Yeah, I don't know. No.
Cool. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for joining the show. If you want access to any of the stuff we mentioned, if you guys want to see like what that game looks like for our hiring process, or if you want a copy of that innovation process sheet that we use, or I don't know, we probably mentioned some other cool stuff, but just comment on the video or send us a message, and we're happy to send it to you.
Right.